On August 2, 1985, Ed Sherman left for a sailing trip with friends. He kissed his wife Ellen, 5 months pregnant, goodbye. On his way out of Niantic, he stopped at his pal Henry's house and rang Ellen to remind her to make a bank deposit. The family was right there and heard him talking to her. While on the sailboat out in the Atlantic, he called home again and a police officer answered, telling Ed that Ellen was deceased. Ellen had been strangled. Her body had been found in her bedroom. The air conditioner turned up so high that the person who found her said it felt like a refrigerator. The crime went unsolved until a witness came forward to give investigators a clue. In, of all places, a VHS copy of a horror movie. Ed and Ellen Sherman appeared to be a happy couple around town. Both professional. Ellen a publisher. Ed a teacher at the local community college. But their private lives told a different story. Ed was a philanderer who often partook in wife-swapping and sex parties. Ellen seemed not to mind and often engaged in the activities herself. Enter Nancy Prescott, Ed's mistress, who became pregnant and had a child during their affair. Ellen, at her limit, told Ed to leave Nancy so they could start afresh. Ed agreed and the couple tried to reignite their marriage, Ellen herself becoming pregnant. But on a Sunday in August 1985, while Ed had gone on a sailing trip with 4 friends, he got a call from police on the boat's radio saying his pregnant wife was dead. Ligatures around Ellen's neck provided the medical examiner with enough proof to determine she had been strangled with her own underwear. But the furthering investigation would also show that she had been strangled before the panties had gone around her neck. Medical examiners determined that she had been killed earlier that Sunday. The question remained: who would do this? And as is usually the case, investigators look first to the spouse as a suspect. But Ed had been away on a sailing trip on Sunday. He had a solid alibi. With 4 witnesses. He couldn't have done it. How could he be in 2 places at once? Ed had even spoken to his wife on the night of the murder at a friend's house. They all heard him on the phone. Forensic scientists were baffled, especially Dr. Henry Lee of the Connecticut State Crime Lab. That is, until someone came forward with a tip that would blow the lid off the case. The witness said she had run into Ed at the local video store on the morning of his sailing trip. She says Ed recommended a horror movie called Blackout, a mystery about a disfigured man named Alan Devlin who early on may have brutally killed his wife and children, then manipulated the crime scene to thwart investigators. In the film, Richard Widmark, Detective Joe Steiner, is confounded and sets out to prove that Alan is in fact responsible for the brutal killings. Remember the air conditioner? In Blackout, the killer uses a clever trick to throw investigators off. He turns up the appliance to its highest setting and leaves it running. The extremely cold temperatures slow down the rigor mortis process and the body's decomposition, which can cause investigators to inaccurately estimate the true time of death. Both Widmark in the film and real-life investigators in the Sherman case discover this murderous hack. In the Sherman case, where the coroner determined the time of death to be Sunday, they surmised that with the air conditioner running, the time of death was actually 2 days prior, on Friday, which means Ed could have done it before leaving for his fishing trip. Still, Ed had called his wife from miles away the night of the murder, and his friends could attest to that. Except unbeknownst to Ed, There was someone else on the phone. One of the gentleman's daughters who reported that she picked up the receiver to make a call and heard him talking, only he wasn't talking to his wife. He was talking over the ringing. On the other end the call was a fake. Ed strangled his wife to death with his bare hands after dinner on Friday. He then wrapped the underwear around her throat to try and mislead investigators into thinking it was a sex crime. After that, and inspired by the movie Blackout, he then turned the air conditioner to high to slow down the decomposition process, ultimately to misdirect the coroner and the true time of death. He then left for his friend's house for the fishing trip and mocked a call later that night, all within earshot of his friends, but unaware someone else was listening. Ed never admitted guilt, and 3 years after the conviction he died in prison after suffering a heart attack. And this how a horror movie helped solve a real-life murder. Thank you all. I hope you liked today's video. Please write your opinion below in the comments.